Thank you for joining us at Cyber Talk TV, hosted by Rex M. Lee and Merle Garrison.
Do you believe that Google has been brought out here in some question is biased?
Congressman, it's really important to me that we approach our work in an unbiased.
Do you believe that Google is biased? It's either yes or no.
No, not in our approach.
We have some leaked video, and it comes from Google. The Google bosses, they were pretty hysterical after the election of Donald Trump.
The video shows Google executives consoling their colleagues after Donald Trump won the presidency. Here's the video.
I certainly find this election deeply offensive, and I know many of you do too.
It did feel like a ton of bricks dropped on my chest. What we all need right now is a hug. Can I move to Canada?
So I think it's safe to say, very simply, that Facebook is losing the trust of an awful lot of Americans as a result of this incident. And I think an example of this is something that I've been hearing a lot from folks who have been coming up to me and talking about really kind of experience they've had where they're having a conversation with friends, not on the phone, just talking, and then they see ads popping up fairly quickly on their Facebook. So I've heard constituents fear that Facebook is mining audio from their mobile devices for the purpose of ad targeting, which I think speaks to this lack of trust that we're seeing here. But and I understand there's some technical issues and logistical issues for that to happen. But for the record, I think it's clear, seeing I hear it all the time, including from my own staff. Yes or no, does Facebook use audio obtained from mobile devices to enrich personal information about its users?
No. Mr. Zuckerberg, tell me about Sintra. What is the Facebook internal tool called Sintra?
Senator, I'm not aware of any tool with that name.
Well, let me see if this refreshes your memory. There's a demonstrative now over my shoulder. Sintra is a tool that Facebook uses to track its users, not just on Facebook, but across the entire internet. Sintra tracks different profiles that a user visits, their message recipients, their linked accounts, the pages they visit around the web that have Facebook buttons. Sintra also uses behavioral data to monitor users' accounts, even if those accounts are registered under a different name. And you can see a shot here, a screenshot provided to us of the Sintra platform. We blocked out the user's name in the interest of privacy, although you can see this individual's birth date and age, when they first started using Facebook, their last login, as well as all manner of trackings. How many different devices have they used to access Facebook? How many different accounts are associated with their name? What accounts have they visited? What photos have they tagged? And on and on and on.
All right. Welcome to another week of Cyber Talk with your hosts, Rex Lee and Merle Garrison. Today we have a guest, Wayne Lowenstein, and we're going to be discussing tech oppression, the rise of corporate authoritarianism in the United States. Wayne is the author or co-author of Disruptive Technologies, as well as Wayne has written some articles for Forbes magazine. So I'm going to go ahead and again, welcome Merle. This is an exciting broadcast. It's touching on a subject matter that is highly relevant to last week's subject matter, and we'll get into that in a minute. As well as I'd like to introduce Wayne. Wayne, if you want to give a little bit more background information on yourself, please do.
Well, thanks. And as always, Merle and Rex, I really appreciate you reaching out and giving me the opportunity to kind of spitball with you guys.
Right on.
I am 35 years an attorney by trade, trying to become a recovering attorney, as I've said before. And primarily in the area of sports and entertainment, anti-piracy on television, and then kind of changed my ways as the 2000s came along and went back to school and said, time to learn new tricks. The internet's going to change TV piracy and TV broadcasting. So got a couple degrees, just enough to know where the smart guys like you live. And here I am.
You're too kind. You don't know me. So I'm gonna go ahead and share my screen here, and I'm gonna get into a couple of slides as we introduce the subject matter. Can you see everything? Are we up and good?
We got it.
Okay. Again, thank you, Wayne, for joining us today on this important subject matter. again, you're the co-author of Disruptive Technologies, which is awesome. We got to know each other by connecting through LinkedIn, a social media platform. But I'm noted for exposing threats with social media platforms, but LinkedIn is a good one. Again, we're going to also touch base on a couple of your articles that you've written for Forbes magazine, combating online privacy and how technology has undermined the trust and civility in society. Sorry about that. So last week we got into addictive technology and addictive, manipulative apps developed by Google, Apple, Microsoft, Facebook, Amazon, TikTok, and other app developers. And these companies are in the information trafficking business, and they collect all of our personal information. And it's relevant to this subject matter simply because they know everything about us, and they're doing it through addictive technology. The problem with that is these apps and platforms are supporting all of our products that we purchase today, whether they're telecommunication products such as smartphones, or tablet PCs, or PCs in general, connected TVs, connected vehicles, IoT products, wearable technology, and so forth. The problem with this is the Android OS, Apple iOS, and Microsoft Windows OS supports all of these products. So these companies pre-install basically surveillance and data mining technology, what I call legal malware, which are the apps. They pre-install these on these products, and we cannot uninstall them, or in a lot of cases disable them. So we're being forced to be surveilled and data mined by these companies, so they know everything about us. It's the largest internet companies in the world who are surveilling us and data mining us. This is so highly relevant to tech oppression because these same companies are also imposing their political values on us. And these companies include Amazon, which is the largest tech company in the world. They're actually bigger than Google. Google's second, JD.com. A lot of people don't know who JD.com is, but their biggest investor is Walmart. Alibaba from China, Facebook, Tencent, Netflix, Bookings, Baidu, and eBay. As a matter of fact, 4 of the top 10 companies are from China, and 6 are from the United States. And this doesn't include Microsoft or Apple because they don't fall into the category of internet companies, but they're as large as these companies. So again, we talked about brain hijacking, what apps do. They addict people to their technology. Why? Because these companies want to collect the most valuable resource in the world, which is our personal and professional information. And they're doing it through addictive technologies, not according to Merle Garrison or Rex M. Lee, but according to Sean Parker, the co-founder of Facebook, as well as Tristan Harris, a former lead product designer for Google. They've actually come out and publicly admitted this during interviews with Axios, 60 Minutes, and Netflix documentaries such as Social Dilemma, which I hope everybody would watch. Also, again, I touch base, they're collecting a tremendous amount of information on us, which includes our personal and professional information, which is the most valuable commodity on the planet, or what the tech industry refers to as a person's digital DNA. And they're doing this without any regulation from the government, which our government is failing to protect us, even from addictive and harmful technology. Agencies such as the FCC, FTC, and state attorney general's offices aren't protecting us. Neither are lawmakers. And why is this happening? Because they bought access to lawmakers, including the president, through powerful lobbyists, which we went over as well. So I want to get into today's topic, and what all of this is leading to is it's an incredible amount of information they're collecting on us. They're doing it through what I believe are illegal business practices because they're using addictive and harmful technology supported by what I believe are illegal contractual agreements or shrink wrap agreements or end user licensing agreements that we all click on. That's a whole nother subject matter. So what I want to do is talk about how all of this leads to tech oppression and censorship, which is the first topic that I want to get into. Now, recently we're seeing censorship again. It wasn't just with the New York Post last year regarding Hunter Biden's laptop. You know, Twitter recently has censored BLM founder information regarding that founder buying over $1.4 million in real estate, as well as TikTok suppresses users that post anything that is critical of the Communist Party, as well as Facebook is censoring COVID information. And just, I think it was yesterday or the day before, Governor DeSantis, Florida Governor DeSantis, was censored on YouTube, streaming a live broadcast about COVID. So let's get into that topic matter here right now.
Yeah, right on, Rex. This is Wayne. I want to get your feedback on this. I mean, this is you wrote an article recently on this tech oppression and how it's actually working on society and civility in society. In light of what Rex just talked about, I'd like to hear what you have to say about that.
Well, sure, and thanks, Merle. And Rex, really, if you go back to what Rex was talking about the disclosures that social media platforms were designed specifically to be addictive, I don't know if any of you have ever stepped in a casino. I have certainly done it. People do stupid things in casinos, including myself. I'm just play a slot for a couple bucks. But what happens is you see bells. Or you don't see bells, you hear bells, you hear noises, you see all sorts of wild graphical sort of eye-catching, eye-popping sort of content. What that does is it affects the dopamine and oxytocin in the brain, the pleasure and addictive principles that make you want more and more. And as that happens, what happens with addiction? As addiction grows, as dependence grows, our walls come down. Our ability to say I can't live with it without it go down, and we have, just like a drug like crack or anything else. And I would surmise and have told people that I believe that this technology, the phones, are also very much designed for the same thing. Your phone has all those little nice noises that come up. Memes are just another way. Memes are a very attractive visual way of controlling the real estate. So how do you control communication, content, and speech? First, you have to have the ability to control. Well, they've got that. Between the phones and the social media, they've got it. The curious part is, and I would argue, tell me what part of the process is owned by the tech companies or social media. And that the question is sort of rhetorical. How do they transmit? Do they own the transmission lines? No. They're transmitting over either public utility or federally regulated airspace.
Yeah, so, you're bringing up a topic that I've discussed in my articles, is the fact that all this is being done over licensed spectrum regulated by the FCC, meaning our smartphones and the internet landlines and wireless are regulated by the FCC, and it's done through licensed spectrum. So basically, these companies have been able to find what I believe, I still think it's illegal, but they found a legal way to tap our telephones and hack our computers, and it's done through these apps, because that's what a smartphone is. It's a PC and a computer that's supported by protected spectrum regulated by the FCC.
Yeah, I feel like it seems like you're going down the path here, Wayne, of Clarence Thomas and the public utilities and regulation. Is that where you're going?
Well, I've been there for a long time, actually, and 100%. And Justice Thomas, I actually did a post. It was amazing on LinkedIn. My most viewed post. I said, brilliant jurist. I agree with this conversation. But, you know, Merle, just as an aside, it was my most liked post. But the composition of the likers were shockingly opaque. And I was like, this.
What does that mean?
Racially not diverse at all.
Mm-hmm.
It was, mostly Caucasian to the 99.9 percentile. And I actually contacted some of my friends on LinkedIn who are African American, some running for Congress. And they said, isn't that amazing? I said, this is a community superstar. Just because he doesn't fit a narrative, talk about a story. And we can talk about this another day. But I was shocked at the lack of response for this brilliant jurist, in my opinion, coming up with this plan, and it wasn't given across the board, brown, black, white, yellow, liking and love.
What do you attribute to that to?
The narrative, the censorship narrative. The Clarence Thomas is not what a lot of the community in the, let's say, I'm in New York, so the Al Sharpton sort of community,
yes,
disavow him, treat him as, I guess they call it, the Uncle Tom. In my mind, it's reverse racism, very severe reverse racism.
Oh, you know what? It's funny you're bringing that up, Wayne, because it's the term reverse racism. I've thought a lot about that, and really, reverse racism is purely racism. But it's a tricky way of using racism. I wonder if one of those Congress people that were running for Congress that you talked to was Burgess Owens.
Well, I've talked with Burgess before because I'm a big Burgess fan.
I am too.
But it was also, I'll mention, it's Rayla Campbell up in Massachusetts, who is a real superstar. She's a mom and she's got a voice, and she says, "Welcome to my world." And I said, "Well, I feel your world, and this is not okay." But going back to the censorship, Rex and Merle, imagine we have, now you guys aren't in New York, but in New York we have plenty of tolls on our highways.
Yes, you do.
All right. Now, pretty much now, to the extent we have a government that's functioning in New York, the government puts up the tolls on the bridges, tunnels, and the New York State Thruway. But imagine these third parties like social media companies actually putting up a toll, okay? That toll is your personal information, all right? And they're doing this toll using the publicly financed highways of telecommunication. Think about that. They don't pay a tax on that toll. They just said, that's what led to the revolution in this nation, where the British government started taxing everything. Well,
taxation without representation, right?
Exactly. Well, we've created these tech monarchies, okay, that are enacting their own toll booths.
Exactly.
It's amazing.
And not only are they enacting the toll booths, but they're doing it based on our personal information. You brought something up about addictive technology and made a comparison or a metaphor to a slot machine. Well, that's exactly what's in Tristan Harris's admission, which he has done on the Social Dilemma as well as 60 Minutes and a TED Talk. He said that's exactly the model that they use. They modeled it after slot machines and what addicts people to slot machines. And some of that is veritable rewards, such as the thumbs up or likes and or confetti and balloons that pop when you say congratulations to people. Those are things that they're doing to release the dopamine. But getting back on topic, censorship is one of the issues that we're dealing with today. But we're also living in a tyrannical surveillance and police state by proxy. I call it corporate communism by proxy, by way of companies such as Twitter, Google, TikTok, Amazon, Facebook, and other companies are joining this, like Coca-Cola, Delta Airlines, Major League Baseball, regarding the voter rights in Georgia, which we'll touch base on. But what we're seeing now is a tyrannical state by proxy. In China, it's done by the government. It's a communist government, but we're seeing that today. And we're seeing it through relationships with companies such as Amazon and the CIA, as well as TikTok as relationship with the CCP, as well as other technology companies' relationship with agencies such as the NSA regarding the PRISM scandal that hit. As well as they're able to collect our data and now police us by that. And we're starting to see that one thing that they put into their agreements over the years when they update that agreement is now they're not just sharing it for consumer basis, they're sharing it to police us. So now we're truly living in a tyrannical surveillance police state by proxy. So let's go ahead and get back on the discussion regarding these issues.
Rex, if I may, you put up the graphic of the money flow. And yes. Tyrants can't be tyrants, right? These tech tyrants can't be tyrants unless somebody lets them do it. And right. I've argued that our federal, most particularly government, states obviously are trying to kick back against that, are pretty much, I hate to say owned. I don't know what the word would be, but they're afraid of a couple things. One, losing a money source. Two, being disliked on social media and targeted. and three, not getting elected again. Those are three pretty powerful objectives for why they're not going to touch it. They're just not going to touch it. And when you have that sort of power being given to unregulated, non-transparent companies, it gets worse and worse. Case in point, my son formerly worked at a car dealership that sold a particular brand. I believe it was Infinity. And they had one very big problem. Infinity would not pay Apple for Apple CarPlay. Now, that's a very heavy license, but it actually hurt the Infinity brand not to offer its customers Apple CarPlay. Well, one of your graphics before showed about what goes on in a vehicle, right? They are mining 24/7. Our good mutual friend Jay Glasgow has lectured me time and time again about that sort of, technology, information theft going on in places nobody knows. And this is the real world consequence of this snowball of Rex. The snowball of taken data is growing bigger and bigger to a point where I don't know that it stops.
Well, see, we're paying for it, though. A lot of people associate being surveilled and data mined by one or two companies when they're on a social media platform such as Facebook. That's not the case. A product that we pay for and that costs us money, like a smartphone or a PC or a tablet PC or any connected product supported by the Android OS, Apple iOS, or Microsoft Windows OS, costs us money. So that means that the surveillance and data mining has proliferated from free products and services to products and services that we pay for. So a lot of what I tell people is it's bad enough to lose privacy, but that's not what's happening in this case. We're not only losing our privacy, we're being exploited for financial gain at the expense of our privacy, cybersecurity, because there's cybersecurity threats that go along with this. And I've written a lot of articles for the Epic Times about this and Mission Critical Communications magazine. But we're also being exploited at the expense of our civil liberties and safety because they're doing it with addictive technology and harmful technology, which in the Sean Parker admission, he actually states God only knows what this is doing to our children's brains. So all of this is happening, and it's happening at a pace that nobody is really going to second level thought about this. And it's great that you just touched base on that.
You know, Rex, when you really look at what's going on right here, I was just thinking while you all were talking about, I used to listen to those old comedy albums, and Steve Martin was telling a story about how he was on a ski lift, and there was a guy that was on the ski lift with him, and he decided to play a joke on him because the guy had written his name on the bottom of the skis. So he knew the guy's name and pretended that he knew the guy. And he said, boy, the guy just looked at me like I was crazy because his name was Rental. And anyway, but I'm just saying that the fact is just having one piece of data about somebody else without them knowing allows that other entity to manipulate that person.
Exactly.
And here you just showed a graphic, Rex, that showed like 40 different data points that they're taking from us. And I know there's a lot more than that. Any one of those data points could be used to manipulate you. This is something that the general public needs to be educated on, that not only are they taking this data from you to manipulate you, that they have learned psychological warfare with this data. You talked about the slot machine effect. There's a psychological term called positive intermittent reinforcement. That's the psychological trick that keeps that old lady, that old blue-haired lady at the slot machine. You saw her when you came into your hotel at 10 p.m. And when you left for your meeting in the morning at 8, she's still sitting in that same chair. It was positive intermittent reinforcement that stole all her retirement money.
Yeah, now while her money's being stolen by a slot machine, our money's being stolen by these app developers. They're actually robbing us. And no, it's not 40 data points, Merle. It's over 5,000 highly confidential personal and employment data points that a single intrusive app can collect on an end user. And it's not one company. When you buy a smartphone, that smartphone may be supported by as many as 300 pre-installed apps that you can't uninstall or control. And those 300 apps are developed by as many as 18 or more multinational companies, including companies from China. So as soon as you buy a smartphone, a connected product, or a tablet PC, as soon as you walk out of that store with that product and it's activated or put online, you're already being surveilled and data mined by multiple companies simultaneously as a result of the pre-installed apps. When you download the apps that you can control from Google Play or Apple Play and Apple Apps and Microsoft App Store, you could be surveilled simultaneously by as many as and data mined by as many as 50 or more multinational companies, including companies from Russia and China.
So the scary part, Rex, is that these multinational companies don't necessarily have America's best interest in at the top of their agenda, and that they've learned these manipulative techniques to get the general public to act on something. It's not just about our money; it's that they can control our actions. I'd like to hear more from that from you, Wayne. You talk about this in your article a lot about the technology and the undermining the civility in our society.
Well, yeah, Merle, you're absolutely right. And it's so hard. You guys bring up such incredible points, and I'm bouncing all over the place because I just wrote down online gaming. Okay. And remind me to go back to that because I want to address what Merle said. Okay. But what I've written about is these companies thrive on the ability to make that addictive technology something that allows or causes the user to question the motive. A text message. Imagine I have a rule like 2 text messages or 2 emails and we don't get it resolved, I'm picking up the phone. Okay. But that's not how it works with addictive technology. So you're left questioning, what was the demeanor? We're not talking eye to eye on technology. So you're left to wonder, what is the demeanor? What was the intonation? What was the facial expression? And the more we get addicted to these things, the less critical we are about words in terms of, the more critical we are about words instead of intent, expression, etc. And intent and expression are human traits where we're looking eye to eye.
Exactly.
So, if I say to you, Rex, if I write, Rex, I'm going to come down and knock you out because you're X, Y, and Z. I can get those beer muscles on a cell phone, right? But if I'm sitting next to you, you're going to punch me right in the nose, and rightly so. That's what's missing. So that's Dr. John Suhler. That's the online disinhibition effect. You don't know me. You can't see me. There is no consequence. It's a fascinating subject. He wrote it in 2004. It's actually in my my chapter in the social media interference in the 2020 election. But basically, it is the science behind why we do what we do online. And I always go to the same thing. I hate to use it. There's an old movie that's probably going to be banned any second called Animal House. There's a scene in Animal House. There's a devil. There's an angel. Okay? Online, there is no devil and there is no angel sitting next to you in the room when you're on the phone. So what happens? Adam and Eve tells us, you say no, I'm going to try and go through that door. It's human nature. When your parents tell you, Merle, don't you look in that closet.
I'm in that closet.
In the closet. But that is the lack of civility. That is the cause. This online, you become disinhibited. You become nasty. And then what happens is the addiction kicks in because you want a response. All right?
Yep.
So what happens is, I didn't get likes. I didn't get a response from the world. It didn't go viral. All right? Let's go to Parkland Shooter. Well, that lack of civility then goes, all right, now I'm going to get bolder. Now I'm going to get more bold. Oh, they're not listening to me. And that's where it crosses the virtual human barrier into shooters, death, explosion, and terrorism. Not to mention stealing everything we have. And they are taking advantage of your isolation in cyberspace to mine you. Because every click and every move you make, they're recording. and they're building like an email travels in bits all over the place. Right?
Yeah, they actually, I did. Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
No. Go, Rex, go.
I actually did research on this, and through the user agreements, part of my research on a Samsung Galaxy Note was to read all of the user agreements. And by the way, the reason I think the contracts are illegal is because the end user licensing agreements that supported all the pre-installed apps on that phone exceeded 3,000 pages. That's an illegal agreement. But what I found in there is that they can create a digital data file on you. So they can create a data file on you. That's what they market. And all of that information that you're talking about goes into that. And it is identifiable information. They tell you that you're de-identified. That's not true anymore. And I'm going to bring up one case that shows that real quickly. This guy here, if you can see the screen, Google tracked him on his bike. That made him a suspect. Well, Google has now joined Amazon in selling our information to law enforcement agency. This was reported by NBC News. All this is Forbes magazine, who you write for, the Wall Street Journal. These are mainstream media outlets reporting this now. This guy was arrested for that burglary as a suspect and had to defend himself because Google sold his identifiable information to a law enforcement agency who used that to track him and make him a suspect in that. So yes, what you're talking about is highly relevant to how we're being policed now. It's not only that, but we're being policed by this technology.
You know what I think is more concerning about this this information that they're able to gather from us, and you talked about this identifiable information, is that my understanding is that they're able to create a digital avatar. It's you. And basically they can sell you to another company. Yeah. And the digital avatar basically gives that other company the combination of how to control you, what makes you work, much like that movie, the Manchurian Candidate.
Yes.
You now can be controlled by a handler.
Yeah, and they're doing that through not only what they do, and Wayne, I want to hear your take on this because this is horrifying. What they're doing with our personal information is how they understand what micro-targeted ads to send to you. Like when you have a conversation with one of your friends, they're listening through the microphone, and then you go home and you look at your Facebook feed or your Twitter feed or TikTok or whatever, and the ads start popping up on there. That's because what they do is they take your personal information and they apply AI to find out what your personal preferences are. Then they apply predictive analytics to understand what or how you think. And then they apply persuasive and manipulative advertising technologies, which means that they can actually influence you to click on a link or even vote for a presidential candidate, which was the issue with Facebook Cambridge Analytica scandal, of which I was an advisor to the Senate Judiciary Committee on, helping the senators formulate questions to ask Mark Zuckerberg. They don't understand how this technology works and how evil it is. And Wayne, what's your take on the use of AI, predictive analytics, and manipulative technology on somebody's personal information?
You guys are killing me. Every time I'm circling something new, Rex and Merle, I'm just, you blow me away. Today, South China Morning News, China, 91% accurate AI text censorship tool. Okay, 91%. So China is now analyzing all the text going through their social and other media networks and getting a 91% score on recreating for censoring communication. I want to go back though, Merle and Rex, online gaming. All right, we have busted budgets, and New York finally is looking at online gaming. All right, now think about this one. So you cannot have online gambling unless you have what? State approval. All right. If you have state approval, that means there are end user license agreements or main agreements where Rex, what are they going to do? Say to the gaming company, oh, you're going to have to be able to share us if we want a subpoena on a particular suspect about their online banking, gaming activities as well. Then add, and there's some brilliant technology that's necessary, the geolocation technology necessary to make sure that when you access the online gambling app, you are within the geographic confines of a particular state or region, okay? That has to run 24/7. And if you shut it off for privacy purposes, but then turn it back on, it goes in and accesses everything because it has to get history. It is amazing where they are going to be prosecuting people. I would suspect, Rex, it's not only going to be the guy on the bike going past the burglary scene being a suspect. You're now going to see money transactions starting to be tracked as well. Bank accounts are going to be given up. There are credit cards you have to put in. Imagine the wealth of information that the states are going to backdoor, okay, through the subpoenaable non-Fourth Amendment process because you agreed to give that to a third party. In that illegal agreement, you did it. It is scary.
This leads in. Oh, go ahead, Merle.
Amazing topic that you're talking about, because what you just told me just now, Wayne, is that through technology, we have figured out a way to 100% circumvent the Bill of Rights and your privacy and all of your protections because of signing the end user license agreement.
Yeah, the Bill of Rights got traded for a Bill of Goods.
So this leads us into our next topic. This is a beautiful lead in, unplanned, into the next topic, which is digital discrimination by proxy. That's what we're talking about. And it's done through corporations again. In the news, Walmart, Joe Biden said that he doesn't believe the government should implement a vaccine passport. So he's pushed it off to corporations. And now the corporations are going to enforce a vaccine passport, which means that you can't go to a Walmart or you can't go to a ballpark or a concert. He's just going to leave it up to these corporations, which control everything, to now police. Not only are they policing us, now they can legally discriminate against us through like the vaccine passport.
Unless you don't want to bake a cake for somebody. That's the only thing they'll enforce.
Yeah, right.
All right, you're absolutely right. So, Merle, think about this one. You go into a restaurant. Does anybody in a restaurant say, "Oh, scan the QR code. We don't have a menu anymore"?
Yes.
Have you done that little trick?
Yes.
Yeah. That's all through all right. What's going on there? Same thing. All right. What's going on at Walmart? What's going on at this shopping center that is geolocating your phone through near field, right, Rex? Near field communications.
NFC. A lot of people don't realize that if you turn your location services off, your phone, you can still be tracked by near field communications. And for those of you out there who don't understand what that is linked to what is referred to as Apple Pay or Google Pay. So one of my friends brought this up to me one time. He said, "Rex, I had my location services off. I was eating at Houlihan's. I get home and I got ads from Houlihan's. I didn't know they were tracking me." I said, "They tracked you through near field communications or NFC tags because your phone hit the register there. Whether you buy something or not, when your phone touches one of those NFC tags, these companies know exactly where you are. As a matter of fact, there are 5 or 6 other ways. We won't get into that, but there are 5 or 6 other ways they can track you, including Wi-Fi access points and so forth, or triangulate you through cellular phone towers. So forget the satellite tracking you and forget that false sense of security. When you turn your location services off, they still know where you're at."
Yeah. Merle, one of the things that concerns me, and it's the very point that this slide talks about, is that proxy world. So, when the Bill of Rights is something that this nation, after the Constitution was ratified, then of course they thought they couldn't get the Bill of Rights through. And the story goes, that's why they didn't pass the Bill of Rights until subsequently. They needed the ratification of the Constitution. But those were the essentials of really replicating a lot of what we would consider the 10 Commandments, the golden rules, because that's how governments eventually came from some sort of religious background, whatever the religion, whatever. Mm-hmm. But so what happened is now the Bill of Rights can only talk about state action. So it is the most beautifully Dr. Evil from Austin Powers sort of orchestrated proxy world where they say, fine, we're not going to abridge your constitutional rights. We're going to let somebody else do it because, as you know, Facebook, Amazon, your restaurant, they're private companies. They're not state actors. So the Bill of Rights don't apply.
So this is where we're headed now. And I think we turn to the subject of these multinational companies, these Fortune 500 companies here in our country have now taken on the role of governing our people. They now have this power. They've realized the power. We look at the party in power today being very closely aligned with these companies. Wayne and Rex, does this look like fascism to you?
Yeah, it does. And, the other thing I want to touch base on regarding fascism is corporations are in our penal system as well. And if you kind of go back to who's the enforcement arm of this? Well, it's the prison system or law enforcement. And a lot of people don't realize that when U.S. corporations entered into the prison industry, there's been some level of private prisons for a while, but all of that was really expedited by the Violent Crime Control and Law Enforcement Bill of 1994, which is what you're talking about here, Merle, fascism. Well, that bill was written by Joe Biden, Senator Joe Biden at the time, and sponsored by Jack Brooks, a Democrat from Texas. And that was on the heels of the explosion of the crack, the proliferation of crack cocaine into the inner cities, and the fact that our government, this is no secret, was in bed with the cartels, actually proliferating the distribution of cocaine to support wars in Central America. All that's already come out. The CIA has actually admitted to distributing this highly addictive drug that made its way to our inner cities. There was a movie called Kill the Messenger, and that was about the reporter for the Sacramento newspaper that broke this story, and the CIA has actually gone back and apologized for it. So all this is in the public news. But going back to what you're saying about fascism, well, that was the explosion of the corporate prison industry, and it went from a few $million a year to a $189 billion industry. And even prison companies' stock is traded on the stock exchange. So what you're talking about, Merle, fascism, leads us to our next topic, which is digital genocide by proxy. And that if you get on the wrong side of these companies, you're also going to be deplatformed, which can destroy your life. And we saw that with Parler, but we're seeing it with individuals as well, Merle.
Yeah, absolutely. These companies now have got this amazing power to control our lives. And, the prison story is a pretty interesting story. I mean, really, when you look to boil that down, it was the CIA that was responsible for getting inner cities hooked on crack cocaine. Then along comes the crime bill that then is responsible for exponential imprisonment, especially people that live in those particular areas. So the crime bill is now controlling those particular areas. Now, 25, 30 years later, those very same people are coming in and saying, oh, that was a terrible bill, and this was done by the other party, and we're the heroes. But the same controls are still there that we're seeing. I just want to start talking about what's happening right now down in Georgia with the voter laws and how these companies, over 100 companies now, have weighed in to manipulate our voter laws. And it seems to me that these companies are all saying they're preaching inaccuracies about what are in these laws, and they've trumped up this entire nation now, where they're the very people that aren't doing what these companies want them to do are being penalized. In Atlanta, the All-Star game is gone. The All-Star game was going to bring in millions and millions of dollars of revenue in Atlanta. Atlanta is 54% black population. They moved the game because they say that it wasn't their values. To these voting rights were not part of the Major League Baseball values. So they moved the game to Denver, where the black population is 9% compared to 54%. And the very next day, Major League Baseball forms a ginormous deal with Tencent, a Chinese company. And what's up with the value statement? I mean, they've got over 1 million Uyghurs in concentration camps over there. How's anybody buying this, and how are we letting this happen? I'll pass it over to you, Wayne.
You know, Merle, they were going to celebrate Hank Aaron at that game. Little personal pride disclosure. My dad did the last known audio recording interview with Jackie Robinson before he died. And the recording was inducted into the Hall of Fame in 2017. Wow. I found it, and I had it authenticated. And, yeah, I could have sold it, but I knew my dad was a baseball nut. And I said the best place for him to lie is in the Hall of Fame with his hero, Jackie Robinson. Now, he's a white Jewish kid from Brooklyn, okay? So people don't know Jackie Robinson was largely a Republican. Hank Aaron was a very down-the-middle hero. And in my opinion, Major League Baseball really dishonored the concept of going forward in race relations under a false narrative of this voter suppression law. Now, I want to go back to tech because it all ties together. Why do we know it's a voter suppression law? Well, because we're being told so by companies who are defending Dominion, which is a company that really is telling us, okay, we're taking taxpayer money and we're going to use algorithms that we say are private. Well, tech / does not equal transparency. So no. Technology gives them the greatest place to hide to conduct information warfare. Saying, no, it's proprietary. You know, don't look there, Wizard of Oz. Okay, so now this is where we are. And now we have companies, which lead to my article in Forbes yesterday, where I'm arguing that leagues, Netflix, Hulu, and all the rest of them are starting to say, hey, hold it. What's going on here? We don't want you sharing passwords anymore. Really? Reed Hastings in 2016 said, and I quote, we think it's great. It's an addictive thing. More people on the couch. Then they figured out that the laws of economics kick in. All right, go back to Georgia. The laws of economics, we're going to fail. Well, they are failing. And guess what? Their own fault. Why? Because they relied upon playing little hijinks with technology and say it's okay to cheat. And then it's like, oh, now it's not okay to cheat. Well, guess what? You addicted people on cheating. Okay. Yeah. Same thing with online piracy that I do every day. Why do you think it exists? Because they're afraid to enforce it. They said, we don't want to go after, and this is all of the big companies and the sports leagues, we don't want to anger the viewers. Well, guess what? They're not the viewers. They're the pirates. And guess who you are angering? You're angering the consumer who's paying your subscription fees, your cable fees, your cell phone fees to get that content. And guess what you're doing? You are causing them to question why they're purchasing. You are creating your own demise. That's how fascism starts, okay? In a very similar way. You hide it, and before it's too late, next thing you know, free speech is gone, independent thought is gone, and the ability to have law and order is gone. Hello.
So I brought up one of your slides that while you were talking that shows that regarding piracy. Now, I want to go back real quickly. You know, we see voter tyranny and oppression by proxy as corporations and celebrities are meddling with state voting laws. Now, I don't know the voter law in Georgia to make in detail to make a real educated opinion on why they think it's that, other than the fact they don't want people to show voter ID, which I believe everybody should do that. So again, you hear these corporations speak out on our voting rights, and they're meddling with voters' voting rights. So that's a form of tyranny, whether it's the right or left doing it. I'm against all corporations getting involved in this area. But what's funny about these companies, and you brought it up earlier, Merle, they all have one thing in common. All these same companies that are meddling with U.S. state voting laws, they're also doing business in communist China, including celebrities who come out against the voting laws, such as Will Smith and LeBron James. Major League Baseball just signed a new deal, a streaming deal with China. A country noted for an appalling human rights record and genocide, as well as mass surveillance, data mining, and censorship of its population of oppression. So I find it highly hypocritical, and a lot of people have as well. I don't think this is going to go over well with the voters, especially independents and even blue dog Democrats when it comes to the midterms coming up, because we can see the clear hypocrisy here. And these companies are not our government. And why are they so entrenched in our lives? It's incredible.
You know, Rex, when I take a look at what's going on here, you're making great points about China. I believe that Major League Baseball's biggest customer now is China. Coca-Cola, same thing. China is a huge economic boon for China. But, you know, you go back to these voter laws that they seem to be against, and it seems to revolve all around voter ID. And, you know, we just talked about how these very same companies are the companies that want to implement the vaccination passport. I mean, how does that make sense that it's going to be bigoted and racially systemic racism if I have to have a ID to vote, but here with the vaccination passport, I can't do anything unless I have this form of identification. So there's hypocrisy right there. But I want to just point out one other form of hypocrisy too, because these companies keep talking about their values, and this doesn't match up with our values. And I'm going to call BS on this, and especially as Wayne just brought up, Jackie Robinson, it was Major League Baseball that kept black people out of the game until 1947. 1947. And you're going to preach to me, a black American, about your values. It seems to me that your values are much like a chameleon. And so how is anybody buying into this? Let me just finish one
Sure.
my last point here, Rex, is how is it that a company like Coca-Cola doesn't realize that when they put out such a crazy statement like what they've done with these voting rights, that people in the know are going to boycott them? How do they not realize that picking sides like that is eliminating a big portion of their customer base? And I'd like to ask you guys, what do they win by alienating half of their customer base?
Merle, I'm going to touch base on this real quickly because they don't care. They've expanded into a market with several billion people, such as China, so they can replace consumers in America. So 50% of America doesn't buy their products anymore. Big deal. Where they're going to triple replacing those consumers. They can, in other words, what we're seeing is the fact that they can afford to lose American consumers and voters because they're replacing them with foreign nationals. And that, unfortunately, that's a byproduct of globalism. And that goes all the way back to, you know, everybody wants to blame the Democrats for this. Well, H.W. Bush was the one who talked about New World Order and brought this nightmare into our lives through the 90s. I'm an independent I'm fiscally conservative. I'm more libertarian, but I do not claim to be a libertarian, but I'm independent, and I'm big on social control over my life and less government in my life. And I walked away from the Republican Party in the early 90s because of NAFTA and globalism from HW. I worked on Senator Phil Graham's campaign as a young Republican and was nominated as a delegate at large at the 1992 Republican convention in Houston. And I didn't go because I started reading what Pat Buchanan was writing about NAFTA and globalism. And I realized that HW was not a conservative Republican. He was a globalist, more of a corporate socialist. And that's why we're seeing corporations married into into our government. And now we're seeing fascism coming from these corporations.
Rex, you made a point here, and it had to do with these corporations and replacing their customer base. But Wayne, why would a company be incented to replace a customer base when they already have a revenue stream coming in?
More. Look at the numbers. Look at the population. It's a simple mathematical calculation. But let's roll back again to Coca-Cola. Not that we're slamming them, but what the heck? You know, they kind of deserve it. They're
slamming us.
one of the shareholders who were the biggest shareholders in Coca-Cola in the early 1900s was, any idea, Mr. Baseball there, Merle? The great Ty Cobb. Ever watch the movie? Ty Cobb has a little bit of a racial tinge to him if you read about Mr. Cobb. He was a great baseball player, don't get me wrong, okay? Now, take that, spin it forward a little bit. Where are the lowest vaccination compliance rates? What community?
The black community.
Very interesting. I argue that the black community is actually very wise and uses history as, wait a second. So it's amazing. It's amazing. These arguments are being fought earnestly by their actions of the black community, a lot of the Latino community. They are not going to be sheep because you know what?
They've been fooled before.
They've been there before. You know
exactly.
They've been there before. This is fascism. This is tyranny. So it's brilliant how history always repeats itself. And you know what? I give great credit. They learned. Not this time. And now we see Pfizer. I'm not an anti-vaxxer. I got the vaccination. I think that what happened was brilliant. You know, I say, President Trump, thank you. You put it. We didn't know what we're looking at. We're still probably looking at something that came out of a lab, but we got to do something about it. But it was a great over the world. But it's amazing, these concentric circles of control versus oppression. And the oppressors are these proxies, Rex, these corporations. Social. It's Nike. I mean, LeBron. LeBron is, you know, listen, he's a fabulous talent in basketball, but he's being used as a front person.
Yeah.
Okay. He's being used.
Well, he's being well paid to be used. So he's being bought off. He's not being used. He's being bought off.
I get it. I don't begrudge it. I mean, listen.
No, I'd take the money, I guess. Yeah, I don't know, you know. But I mean, we got to call it what it is.
I wanted to, you know, I was listening to an XM last Christmas. Billy Joel did a town hall with XM radio, and you know, it was just before the election, and all the woke of my tribe were down in Miami Beach at this particular sort of convention, and you know, Norman from Brooklyn or somebody like that says, "Hey, Billy, you know what do you think of you know, this Trump and what's going on here, and give me your opinion." And Billy Joel says, "I'm a piano player. Why would you want to listen to my opinion about politics?" So I should be asking you the question. I'm a court jester. I became the biggest Billy Joel fan after that because he got it. He is the antithesis. Just do what you do. If we all do what we do, we'd be a much better, you know, and I guess we're all talking and opining too. So maybe we're a little bit guilty too, but I hope we're all honest in saying we're all flawed.
Exactly. Right? So that was my point. I just made a comment. Do you know either if you or I would take the money, you know, in that position, and especially if you weren't aware or enlightened by these matters, you know, so I don't fault them individually unless they really knowingly know about this stuff, which they should. You know, LeBron James, Will Smith, or any other celebrity, Tom Cruise, whose Top Gun is being produced by a Chinese company who made him remove the Taiwan flag from his jacket. We're seeing that censorship in our movies now. You know, these are celebrities who are taking money, but they don't know if it's blood money, but I bet you they do, but I can't make that statement, you know. So if I'm aware or enlightened by this stuff and I was taking the money, that would be wrong. And I don't know if I could do it. And what we're seeing today, though, from what we saw in the past, is our technology has been interwoven into this corporate fascism that we're seeing. So what you're seeing, and this is already proved out regarding Facebook, Cambridge Analytica, and also the new, what I call Facebook, Cambridge Analytica 2.0. It's a scandal that nobody's reported on except for myself, and I saw a little bit of it on Fox News, is the fact that Joe Biden